This is a Fox News alert. We have breaking new details on the attempted terror attack in the heart of New York City. One of the big stories we're following as we await the White House briefing. Hello, everyone. I'm Dana Perino, and this is the Daily Briefing. The suspect, originally from Bangladesh, set off a pipe bomb strapped to his body in an underground passageway near Times Square, sparking chaos at the height of rush hour and one of the busiest transit hubs in the world. The 27-year-old man is now in custody amid a fast-moving investigation. Reaction now from Governor Andrew Cuomo.
This is New York, and we all pitch together, and we are a savvy people, and we keep our eyes open, and that's what See Something, Say Something is all about. And we have the best law enforcement on the globe.
Rick Leventhal is live in New York City. Rick, what is the latest?
Dana, I have some late-breaking information from law enforcement sources who are working this investigation who say the suspect had no known co-conspirators, that he made the device at work where he was employed at an electric company, and that he has extensive overseas travel since arriving here in the U.S. in February 2011. His name, Kayed Ullah. He's 27, lived in Brooklyn, from Bangladesh in the U.S., as I mentioned, for 6.5 years now, a lawful permanent resident, I'm told, with a license at one point to drive a livery cab, not a yellow cab, but a livery cab in New York. It's not clear if Ullah was inspired by ISIS. Some are reporting that he told investigators that this morning's attack was a revenge for attacks overseas, possibly U.S. action in Gaza, but that is so far unconfirmed by my sources. But if his goal was to inflict damage and death, he failed miserably. Authorities say Ullah had a low-tech pipe bomb strapped to his body with Velcro and zip ties, and when it detonated in that underground passageway between the Port Authority and Times Square, the bomber was the only one seriously injured, with lacerations and burns to his hands and abdomen. 3 other people were hurt, but they were complaining of headaches and ringing ears, Dana, and they self-transported to local hospitals. So that looks like they're going to be okay. This guy obviously being held under guard until he's able to go to court.
Rick, 2 questions. They caught the guy very quickly, and do you have any other information about where he might have traveled overseas in the last couple of years?
Don't have that information, just that he traveled extensively overseas. The Port Authority police, who are in charge of the Port Authority and other locations around the city, including the World Trade location, they were the first on scene. Port Authority police officers quickly collared this guy, but obviously it was all hands on deck, and the NYPD raced to this location along with the MTA, state police, and the FBI. Now the investigators are searching the suspect's home, his family's home, and obviously scouring his social media and any devices for clues to his inspiration and possible accomplices. And the mayor is now encouraging New Yorkers to carry on.
This is the most resilient place on earth. We've proven it time and time again. We proved it just over a month ago. We proved it on 9/11. We're going to prove it again today. The terrorists will not win. We're going to keep being New Yorkers. Let's get back to work.
The governor has now announced enhanced security measures at key locations across the state, including bridges and tunnels and mass transit areas. But obviously, Dana, New York City remains a prime target for terrorists.
Indeed. All right, Rick Leventhal, thank you so much. Investigators now searching for evidence linked to the bombing. This as Fox News has obtained surveillance video showing the suspect detonating the bomb. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo points out that the device used was very low-tech.
There was an explosion. The police commissioner will go over the details. It was an effectively low-tech device. There were several injuries, we hope minor.
Joining me now is Joey Jones, a retired bomb technician with the U.S. Marine Corps. I'm so glad you could join us today. Joey, what do you think happened with this particular bomb?
Good afternoon. Looking at this, there's kind of 2 scenarios that could have played out. One, there was a problem in the chemistry of the main charge. In other words, in mixing chemicals to make an explosive, he made a mistake and the bomb did what we call low ordered, which means in order to set off high explosives, you cause a small explosion, which then sets off the higher explosive. A more volatile explosive sets it off. What it looks like looking at the video is either the difference between the initiator, the blasting cap, if you will, probably something improvised, even like a shotgun shell, That went off, but the main charge did not, which is called a low order. And there's also evidence of that, considering the fact you can see the picture of his body doesn't really have a lot of lacerations or penetration there. And then the other idea here is that he used a more low explosive, like black powder, like the whole bomb was made of, say, shotgun shell type material. And when you set that off, if there's any weakness in the container, it'll essentially just vent. In other words, instead of blowing up, it'll kind of burn out. And that's, the video could show either of those scenarios. Listening to the little tidbits of information like low tech and probably worked alone, and the fact this person might have an electronic background but not a chemistry background,
right.
I tend to lean more towards it's using a more low explosive, something more commonly available, but isn't as volatile and doesn't set off a big explosion. So all sorts of signs of novice and amateurism, as
right.
well as probably working alone.
But if it had been the first scenario, the one that you were talking about, and it had worked, would the damage possibly and the injuries and possible casualties been a lot worse?
Well, if it is a pipe bomb, I mean, they use these terms that are really, really general and don't speak very well to an imaginative what this was.
Okay.
If this was some sort of container bomb, then the number one thing is it's not set up like a suicide vest. When you set off an explosion, it goes in 360 degrees. When you make a suicide vest, you try to stop your body from absorbing half of that and pushing all of it out away from you.
Right.
You also add things that produce frag and shrapnel. We don't see any evidence of that right now with what we know, which means that had this gone off completely, his body, being more soft material than most things around him, would have absorbed at least half of this, to include the frag and shrapnel if there were any there. So there's a lot of signs of amateurism. It doesn't seem like a suicide vest purposefully made to explode out and cause harm.
Right.
Seems like someone who might very well have been upset and tried to do something he didn't quite know how to do.
Rukmini Callimachi, she's the New York Times reporter who covers ISIS, and she tweeted that after every attack where the casualties are few, I see misinformed people labeling it as a failed terror attack and theorizing ISIS won't claim it because it was botched. Let's be clear, this man walked into Times Square wearing a bomb. That is not a fail in ISIS's eyes. And is that something we need to get our heads around, that this is a generational war, and while we have not had these types of attacks in New York City, that we could probably expect that there will be more to come, especially if somebody like this, without much training, can create a bomb that maybe it wasn't the best bomb he ever created, but we have to be on a war footing.
Well, you know, the idea of lone wolf terrorism is someone that's personally inspired by what they see, not contact made, to go do something bad. They join this cause. We're fighting a war of ideas. We're fighting an enemy who thinks that what we stand for is not only offensive to them, but destructive to their way of life, and Sharia law and the things they would like to see implemented in their region and around the world. So whether or not ISIS sees this as a victory, I quipped earlier today, this guy was so bad at what he was doing, even ISIS wouldn't take credit, because I don't believe to date, right now they have. But the truth is, you know, this caused a lot of disruption in New York City today.
And a lot
probably
of cost.
caused some ripples in the market. Yes, and there's going to be a lot of money associated with what it took to cordon these places, stop the trains, and reset. I will tell you, though, if you go after New York City specifically, you might succeed in an attack, but they will absolutely succeed.
I was just saying that before the show started. There's only so much they'll take. All right. Johnny Joey Jones, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.